Hey, it's Brock here with Uncommon Aquatics, and today I want to talk about what we should do with our aquariums when we go on vacation. And this may sound like a really simple question that maybe you would think it has a simple answer, but if you've spent any time online talking to people in Facebook groups or discussion forums or anything like that, you've heard all the horror stories that every time someone gives instructions on how to care for their aquariums and then they go on vacation, they usually come back to a disaster. And I've heard that story 1,000 times. And normally my advice would be very simple. If you're going away for the weekend, you're going to be gone for 3 days, I'd say do what I do and have your lights on a timer, and then feed your fish a lot the day before you leave, and then don't say anything to anyone about helping with your aquariums. You're probably better off. Fish can go a couple days without eating, and many more fish die from too much food put in the tank than not enough. So I'm in a very fortunate situation that me and my family are going on a 7-day cruise, and we're leaving in 3 days, and that's going to have us actually gone for at least 9, maybe 10 days. And I don't want to leave the aquarium unfed for 10 days. So that leaves you with what are the options? And worst case scenario, there are close to 100 fish in this 125-gallon aquarium. If one of those fish dies the day I leave and falls to the bottom and then lays on the bottom for a week, I have a real problem. So that leaves me with a few options. So the first two options don't solve that problem, but the first two options that immediately come to mind of how do you feed your fish while you're gone, number one is those like vacation food blocks that you put in the aquarium and it's supposed to last all week. I would never do that. I think it's a terrible idea. If you've done it and it works, that's great, but I'm not putting anything in there and thinking it's going to last a week. These fish are going to tear it to pieces and it's going to cloud the water and it's going to be gone. That's my opinion on it, but I haven't actually used them. I just wouldn't do it. Second option is an automatic food feeder. They're not super expensive. I've never wanted one because of two things. Number one, I've heard they can be finicky, and I would rather not take a chance of it malfunctioning and overfeeding or underfeeding. But that's really not it. My big problem with automatic fish feeders is my favorite thing about having an aquarium is feeding the fish. I'm not giving away the best part of this hobby in my mind, which is feeding them and watching the way they interact when they are fed. You know, it highlights if there's aggression, anything like that. So I'm not giving up my hobby of feeding my fish to an automatic feeder. So if I bought one, I would be buying it just for the vacation and then trying to make sure I understand how to use it and testing it ahead of time. You could do that, but that doesn't solve that second problem I talked about. What if a mid-sized fish dies the day after I leave? And it's not maybe likely, but if that happened, I would come back and all the fish would be dead. So I've chosen an adult to feed my fish, and I've got all these different fish foods that I feed, a whole bunch up there. And I'm telling him, like, here's what I do. And he's looking at me like, man, this is too complicated. And I'm like, okay, so let's not do any of that. How about only, maybe they won't starve to death if you just put a tiny bit of each of these in there. And he's not coming every day. So I got this really good idea from a local fish store to use an ice cube tray to solve my problem. I like to feed frozen foods, but I don't want to only feed frozen foods. So what he said was, just get an ice cube tray and then pretend you're feeding your fish. I would put this much sinking cichlid pellets in a day. So I'm going to put that much sinking cichlid pellets in each compartment of this tray. But I've also got some Danios and some Tetras in there with very small mouths. They like flake food. So I'm going to put a daily pinch of flake food into each compartment. Also got some female bettas in there, and the mollies and stuff. they seem to like these worm-shaped betabites. So I'm going to put just a little bit of these worm-shaped betabites in there. Now with each thing, I'm just doing what I would normally do, just a sprinkle, just a few pieces into each compartment of this little tray. And this, I mention that because it sounds like a lot of food, but it's not. I also like to put a little bit of this algae wafer in there. Some of my fish are herbivores. I'm trying to keep them off from eating my plants. But I take these algae wafers, and they're called pleco thins, and I break them into these tiny little pieces, and I never put a whole wafer in there. I just put pieces. I've got certain fish that really go for those, and then I've got the bristlenose and the autosynclus. So I'm going to take, for this entire ice cube tray, I'm going to take about 3 of these wafers and split it up into these 14 compartments. So now, within each one, the entire amount of food I've got in there still fits between 2 fingers. It's a variety. There's a whole bunch of different foods in there. And I feed my fish like this. Every day, I come out here 4 times and put just 2 little pinches of something in. For 100 fish, it adds up to a lot of food. Now this will be less food than I normally do, but it still has that variety. Then I'm just going to pour some water into each of these. And you might think, well, those foods start to get, you know, once you water them down, they get soggy and the fish won't want them. But as soon as I get this water in here, I'm going to put this tray in the freezer, and I'm going to make my own little frozen food cubes. So when my adult son comes over here after work and he wants to be really quick, I can say drop in 1 cube and you're done. But just to make sure there's no problems with that, I'm going to freeze these now. I'm going to record myself feeding these cubes tomorrow and make sure it works well. And if it works for me the next 3 days before I go on vacation, I'll have 11 pre-made, pre-measured, specialized frozen food cubes here for my fish. And you could, if you liked it, you could feed this way all the time for convenience if you want to set these up. But I think it's a great option for when you're going on vacation. So I'm going to pop these in the freezer. Once they're all frozen, we'll come back here and we'll feed these and see how they do. I froze these up yesterday. We're going to see how well they work today. I fed the fish this morning, and I just started to feed them again, and then it dawned on me, wait, I'm not supposed to be feeding them tonight. I'm supposed to be using these cubes. So when my son comes over, just pushes on that. I got these ice cube trays for like $1 more than the regular ones that had that soft spot on the bottom. When we look, you can see there's the fish food, and mostly it all was sitting at the bottom. So I'm just going to throw this in there. I know usually I thaw my frozen food in a cup of water, but I just want to see what they do. So let's watch it together. As that's melting, it's releasing the food, and you can see almost all of the fish kind of swarming over here. All right, there is the carnivore pellets, which are big, and those are falling to the bottom, which is what they normally do. Or the blue Acara's nibbling on it. Now a Tetra's got one. And those are bigger than their mouths, so they kind of carry them around. Yep, there goes another cichlid pellet. It's like a time release of this food. Well, I'm happy to report I came back after being gone for 9 days. My water is crystal clear. There's no food waste floating on the top. I don't see any skinny fish or unhappy fish. There's obviously no dead fish, which is primo, #1 thing you're looking for when you come back from a vacation. And a few of them, like the platinum cichlid, has doubled in size, the platinum polar blue. And man, does this blue Acara right here look like he's fattened up a lot. And I didn't instruct enough food for that result, but you can see this ice cube tray has 8 cubes gone. I was gone for 9 days. I asked my son to come over every other day and put 2 cubes in. He has a little bit of a drive. I didn't want him to have to come every day. The other cool thing, we've got some new fish here. These are cool and unique dwarf or peaceful cichlids that are going to live in here, and I'm going to announce them in my next video. But the ice cubes for feeding seems to be working out great. I think it's going to be my go-to anytime I take a vacation. I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.